What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 41 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games weekly gaming podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by the Steam Deck community's greatest mind, Mr. Steven Radford.
I d I don't know about that, but hello, hello.
Credit where credits. Here's the thing, Steve. When I when
Don't
I
big me up too much.
when I
Really don't.
joke when I joke about the concept that you don't know things, the people come to defend you. So now I'm gonna put all that respect on your name, and then you let them sort it out.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a good thing to have on my tombstone.
Yeah. You can claim it.
Yeah.
I just gave it to you. You didn't
Yeah.
even pick the name, right? Like, there you go.
Yeah, I'll attribute it to you.
That's all
But,
that's all it takes, right? Like, if I've learned anything about how athletes get their nickname, somebody just says it and then that's it, right? Like, that's I put it on you, all you have to do is, lean in.
yeah. What's that quote that Michael Scott does, the Wayne Gretzky one, and then he, like, quotes that and then, like, puts his name underneath? Like,
Yes.
maybe a
I think it's you miss, like, 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah,
Wayne
yeah, you don't
Gretzky,
take.
Michael Scott, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be like that,
There you
everyone
go,
should
there
just
you go.
quote Pete and just, like, put their own thing on it.
Yeah, I love it, go for it. You take it, carte blanche, feel free. But we got a good one ahead of us here, Steve, because of course, just yesterday, the Summer Games Fest more or less kicked off with Sony's PlayStation Showcase, where they revealed Project Q, which is their latest handheld,
Hmm.
I guess, right? It's
Re
certainly a
related
handheld device, but
Related to the musical, right? Avenue Q, obviously. It's like,
oh,
some
sure.
yeah, it's gotta be.
You would think, yeah, sure. That's the brand synergy that PlayStation is looking to achieve here, right? They're like, what we need to be doing is
Yeah.
referencing decades old musicals.
They should have got, like, a puppet to bring it out and, like, show them playing it,
Remember
you
when
know?
Sony had weird commercials? Really? You remember like back in like the PS3 play like PSP
Yeah,
era, they would
yeah.
have like
That
wacky stuff
PSP,
like
like,
that?
the racist
Those
PSP
really
one, that was
racist
great.
squirrels, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a nut you can play outside. It was like, whoa, okay. I don't know about all that. But anyway, I'm sure some of you are wondering why in the world are we talking about PlayStation here on the Steam Deck podcast? And I mean, if you go to the Steam Deck subreddit, you'd think that Sony released a direct competitor to the Steam Deck because folks are over there dunking on this thing left and right. And I know you wanted to raise the question of, you know, d- can this product survive? Can it carve out a niche in a world where handheld PCs are starting to dominate and there are all these other devices that you can do remote play on, right? Is like what is the play here?
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch on it because we had a question, I think it was last week, talking about remote play. It might have been the week before, and I use remote play a lot. We've done 2 videos, one about how you can remote play your Xbox and one about how you can remote play your PS5, and the one about remote
Yeah.
playing your PS5 is our most popular video that we've ever made. So, obviously, thousands of people are interested in being able to remote play their PS5 on a handheld device. So, I think Sony is definitely onto something, but it's whether that device is exclusively just for that I think I struggle with, and whether when you've got a device like the Steam Deck that retails for, like, what is it, 350, I think it is in the UK,
Is that the cheapest one? Yeah.
um, whether it can compete with that, whether people are okay with just a handheld device that's an accessory to a £500 console, or whether they just want to invest into an actual handheld PC like the Steam Deck or like the ROG Ally or the Aya Neo or any of these other ones that are coming out. And I don't know kind of how it fits in.
I think for me, it all comes down to price and performance. We already I already got a negative comment on my my reaction to the device over on the Flip Screen Games podcast yesterday. All in in good fun, but I think and this is not going to be a popular opinion on this show. I recognize, but I'm going to say how I feel. I think if the price is right and the experience is like seamless enough, right? Like it has to be a very good experience. I I don't know. I could see this filling a niche, right? Because I think the rumor right now is because there's no price point on this thing, right? is that people are thinking it's gonna retail for somewhere between about $200 and $300. And I think on the lower end of that, that doesn't seem crazy to me because in the States anyway, right? The Steam Deck, I just pulled it up. The cheapest 64 gig model is $400, right? So the idea that you could get a device that's half the price of that, right? If you only have this very small use case where you want to maybe have a second screen experience because, like the kind of experience that you have a lot, Steve, right? Where your partner's using the television, you share a small space and you want a dedicated device just to use with your PS5, maybe that would be a better solution for you. Maybe you're somebody who travels and your only console is the PS5 and you're flying, you're in hotels, you're in places where there is going to be stable Wi-Fi that you can take advantage of.
I mean, that
Um,
that is very dependent on you having a stable Wi-Fi connection at home
right.
with a decent upload speed,
Absolutely.
and I feel like that is where this potentially loses out to other
Sure.
cloud solutions from Microsoft, where they've got a big data center where it's streaming from there, and they don't have to worry about the upload speed at your house. It is just downloading it from the cloud,
Right.
and I can play those cloud games on my Steam Deck or on my phone, but I can also play other things as well, and seemingly with the Project Q, I can't download anything. I can't even, like, emulate, like, the PS1 games that they've got on their premium tier of PlayStation Plus. If it could play some of those smaller titles, I think I would be kinda compelled,
You couldn't even
but I
take
think
advantage of those games, right? Because they're streaming only. So like they have to be on and maybe that's, maybe we'll get more conversation about how that works, but them saying that it's like not a streaming device and that the games need to be downloaded on your PS5, that would mean that like the PS3 games that are available in that library that you can only access through streaming, you wouldn't actually be able to use it either. So it's not
and
even
that would
taking
suck as
advantage of that
well.
extra money that you're spending on that subscription service, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would really suck if that's the case. Like, I've got to download them, and I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Because how much bandwidth have you got? You've got to stream them from PlayStation and then upload that stream back up so you can play it
Yeah, the
on your
latency would
Project
be
Q.
insane.
Yeah, the latency would be ridiculous. So it makes sense from that perspective. But why not have it so you can just like stream it directly to the Project Q? It's already got Wi-Fi built in anyway. It could connect directly
So,
to the
and this is the thing.
PlayStation Plus servers.
Right? Like like I said, I got a comment where somebody was, saying that I was kind of like going out of my way to defend the device. This is the thing that I'm thinking though, right? Is it comes down to the price point because you're saying, well, why isn't it this? Why isn't it that? Well, that would cost more, right? So if it is a device that
Why would it
only
cost more though? I
you
don't
don't think
think it would
so?
because it's using a different video stream. So rather than the video stream from my PS5 in my house, I'm getting a video stream from PlayStation's data center and streaming it from there instead. And that's already been set up, right? They've already got
Hmm.
that. They're already streaming PS3 games. So why not have
Yeah,
that
but that's not the same
have that
thing though, right?
option?
Streaming the PS3 games is not the same as streaming your entire
But if
library.
I could, like, stream all of the games that are installed on my PS5, but then I wanna play those PS3 games, that could be like a step into it, right? That I
Yeah.
can you can play the whole library that you've got, and you can stream those games. And I think that would be the right thing to do, but it doesn't seem like that's what they're gonna do. I feel like they would have mentioned that, and it wouldn't have had that caveat on screen of they've gotta be downloaded to the device and stuff like that.
And it excludes VR. in
Yeah.
case you in
And
case you
and
were
if it
wondering.
And if it works like remote play with Chiaki, all of the media apps don't work either. The screen goes black. You can't
Mhm.
stream any of those, so you won't be able to watch Netflix on this thing. You won't be able to watch Hulu or Disney Plus
But
or
again,
whatever
it's
you're
like I don't
subscribed
I don't
to.
think that that matters, right? Is that the point of this device? It's not, Like
No, it's not, but
you
that's like
can't
a
do any of
nice
those things on your
addition.
Nintendo Switch either. You can watch
No,
Hulu.
I can't do any of those things on my Switch, but I can do those things on my Steam Deck, and I think that's another kind of use case of, oh, this is another kind of more general device with the Steam Deck, and I can plug the Steam Deck into my TV. Seemingly, there is no port on the Project Q. If
Right.
Tom Henderson's reporting over at Insider Gaming is to believe, which it should be, because he's the one that broke the news of this device. There's only a headphone jack and a charging port on there, and that's it. And we don't know what's going to come in the box either. My dad made a point over on Discord that we don't know the name, we don't know the pricing, but if it's $199 on the low end, you're probably then still going to want to buy a case because I doubt it comes with a case. Does it come with a charger or does it just come with a cable in the same way that the DualSense doesn't come with a charger? It just comes with a cable. Do I have to buy all those things extras, like additional accessories, or is it like a complete package like the Steam Deck? I get the Steam Deck, I get the case, and I get the charger all in one, or is it a bit more piecemeal?
I don't know, and I think my entire problem with their reaction to this thing is making assumptions based on nothing. Being like, "Oh, you'll have to do this, you'll have to do that, so that's gonna drive up the price, and that's gonna drive up the price." It's like, people are so determined to hate this thing, and we don't even know what it is, actually, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the hate for it is it just looks goofy as fuck, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's not a good design, it's certainly not attractive, but I will say, I'm sure the experience of holding it is good,
It's
ergonomically
probably really
speaking.
ergonomic, but popping that thing in your bag is gonna be a weird experience,
I mean,
but I
is
guess
it?
you would have,
Why?
like, a molded case for it.
I think it will have a molded case, though, why wouldn't
Mhm.
it?
Yeah.
Like, how is that any different than you bringing your Switch or your Steam
No,
Deck
you're right,
or
yeah.
whatever, right? Like, it's like
It just
you toss it in the
it
bag,
looks jarring because I'm not used to seeing a controller cut in half with a
just
screen wedged
shoved
in
on it,
between.
right?
It looks like a prototype. It looks like, "Oh, we're
Yeah.
gonna make a handheld. How should we do this? Okay, let's cut this controller in half and we'll put a screen between and we'll kinda see how it
Mhm.
goes." And it looks like they presented that to Jim Ryan and he's like, "Yeah, I
But
like this. This
again,
feels great. Let's
this
make it."
is this is why I'm inclined to think that this is supposed to be a cheap device, right? They called it an accessory. They included it in that same conversation as the headphones and everything. And it's an 8-inch LCD screen with a DualSense crammed on the side. Like there's not a ton of, you know, there's not a ton of design, I think, that like effort that went into this because I don't think it's supposed to be more than a niche product for a niche segment of the audience. And I think that's the whole thing is that like if we're talking about that window of like 2 to 300, right? If it is 300, then this thing has no future because I would agree with you that like why wouldn't you get a Steam Deck? Why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you do that? And I think it comes down to the fact that like you can't overestimate how much people do not want to like fiddle with things. A lot of people do not want to do that stuff. And they don't want
No,
to
yeah, I
buy a
appreciate
Steam
that,
Deck
but
and then have to launch it in desktop mode and watch a 20-minute tutorial on our YouTube channel on how to set it up. They want to buy a thing for an affordable price point and throw it in their bag and be able to play God of War when they get to wherever they're going or play, you know, whatever it is. Um
I mean, that's a big presumption that it works outside the home as well, because 'cause they've not announced that. Like, it could just be a
yeah,
in-the-home streaming
like, has
device
to
with
be on the same
Wi-Fi.
network. And I think that's the
Mhm.
thing though, again, right? Like, if that is the case, then this is gonna be even cheaper, right? Because the only point of it would be it's a Wii U type experience where, oh, I'm at home and I can go upstairs and keep playing, or I can change the channel, my partner can use the TV and I can keep playing. And if that's the case, and this thing's like closer to $100 or like, 1 to
There's
200.
no way. I don't see it. I mean, that their headphones cost, like, $100. I don't think you make something that's the same price as their headphones that also has a big screen and a controller and Wi-Fi built in and,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a 1080p screen that's seemingly really nice that does 60 frames per second, so I can't see that it's getting down
I
to
mean,
the
it's an LCD
$100 price
screen, though.
point.
It's like also those aren't the most expensive thing in the world.
No, that's
Not
true, but even
$100 cheap.
still,
Don't get me
yeah,
wrong.
it's not $100. Like, you can rarely get an Android tablet for like $100. You're looking at one of the crappy Amazon Fire ones for that price, and
Sure.
even then they've got ads on those to actually
Right.
make money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's I guess the question, right? Is like I don't know though. The more that you like add those caveats, it's like I don't see. I don't get me wrong. Sony has definitely come out and overcharged for products before, but like when people are like, "Oh, the headphones are $100," that's what headphones cost. I don't understand why you throw that out at me as like the 3D
No,
Pulse
I get
headphones are
that, but
100.
like
That's actually cheap for the quality of the headphones. So like that's not
but
to
like a dual
me,
sense
and
though,
it being
right?
a
Think
cheaper
take a dual
LCD screen
sense.
than OLED, like that's another thing where it's like, okay, so this thing is probably
Mm,
supposed to be cheap, right? It's not a new design of a
I
controller.
don't
They
think
didn't.
so.
I don't know.
I don't I don't think it's gonna be 100.
No,
I
no, no.
do think the rumor of 199 to 299 is accurate.
I don't think it can hit
And if
100.
and I think I there's no way it can hit 100. I mean, like, they're charging $60 for the base controller as it is. I think to hit 100 with the additional technology they've got to put in there, because it's not just a screen. We've got to have a processor in there. We've got to have an operating system. It's got to be able
Wi-Fi
to
chip.
connect. There's got to be a Wi-Fi chip and interface. We've got to have like the headphone jack, the charger. You've got to have all of that stuff. And not forgetting, this does have the adaptive triggers and the gyro and everything that the DualSense has. It's just missing the touchpad. The screen is in place of the touchpad and presumably will work in place of it. Um, I just struggle with if it's 300. I kind of just don't see why anyone would buy it. You're looking at
No.
even 250. I think I struggle with. It's like half the price of a PS5,
I
and
think
all I
200
can do is
has to be the
stream.
window or the ceiling on it. Like I don't think it can come out at more than that. And that doesn't mean that I don't think it will, right? Like they literally could, but I don't. I think at that point it doesn't find an audience because it is a niche product, and for it to be successful, I think it has to sell at that kind of price. It needs
Maybe
to
that's okay. Maybe they're okay with a niche product. They already sell the DualSense Edge. That's over
exactly. And I think that's
$200.
that's the thing. The metric of success for this is not the same, right? Like it's not supposed to be a new platform or a new SKU. It's supposed to be an accessory for the device you already own.
Yeah, but
And
that's my point in terms of the pricing, right? If they're willing to charge over $200 for a controller with the DualSense Edge, then I think they're willing to charge more than the DualSense Edge for a streaming device with a screen that you can remote play all of your games
maybe I
with.
don't know though, because I just I don't know, and maybe I am being too bullish in that regard of like, no, you want to sell low and like incentivize people to get in on it. Whereas like I look at that controller, I don't think those are necessarily comparable because I think of that as this is a premium product and it is supposed to be like a well, no, yeah, it is too expensive. You don't need it. The regular DualSense is a great controller, and that's what we expect you to use. But if you want to go that extra mile and get that premium thing, here it is. And you could argue that this is that same thing where it's like, well, yeah, then you don't need one. Whatever, no worries.
Yeah, because like the alternative has been you do it on your phone, you do it on your iPad, you do it on your
You buy
computer.
the
You could
backbone
already
for a
do
hundred
remote play on
dollars.
any of this. Yeah, like there are alternatives to this, and this is that like device for people who really want to go in on remote play. I think remote play needs work in order for this to be a compelling device. Remote play works well enough, but I know you've also tried like the cloud stuff from the
Yeah.
Xbox front. Even it's not good enough.
I
It's
think a
just
big
not good
part of
enough
that
for
though
like a
too
premium
though,
experience.
I think a big part of that is doing it on a phone though. And it's bad on phones.
No,
Like,
I don't think it is on the phone because I've done that on my Steam Deck, and I've got the controller, and I've done all of that, like the cloud streaming. It just doesn't work very well when I'm out and about, and the Wi-Fi's patchy, and
yeah,
you've really got to have a strong connection, and it's got to be a really fast connection. You're talking
yeah,
over 100 megabits per second in order for it to be any good. If you're on the local network with your PlayStation 5, you'll have no problem because I
yeah, it
I
should be
use
all right.
Chiaki all the time, and you'll be absolutely fine. But
And that's the thing is, I
I think
guess for
it
people in certain markets, it will work better, right? Because like my upload speed is 3 times that. Like I don't have that problem, but like I recognize
mm,
that that's not a reality for most people, and like not
well, even in the
even
most of the United States, right? You look at
yeah.
going Midwest,
Or
it's not
New
gonna
York
be that.
City. New York City has bad upload speeds. Like
Mm,
that's not a it's not unique to rural areas by any stretch. It's just I happen to live in an area with good internet infrastructure, and I'm lucky enough to be able to enjoy that.
yeah, which I don't think is the norm for most people. We all deal with patchy internet. I know I do. Mine's on a
Yeah,
cellular
yeah.
connection.
I mean, there's entire countries where gaming is a huge deal and the PlayStation brand is established where there's just not strong internet infrastructure, right? Like I think of somewhere like Brazil, right, which has always been a bigger market for PlayStation. The internet infrastructure there is just it's not great. It's years behind, and that's true in a lot of places. And like I mentioned New York City, there are apartment buildings that are hundreds of years old and that like the it's just, it's not feasible to rip it all out and replace it with what you need to actually, and we'll get there eventually, right? But like a big band-aid on that problem seems to be that people think, well, we'll take advantage of 5G. And it seems as though this will not, be able to take advantage of that at all because it is having to
It's
do
Wi-Fi only.
Wi-Fi only. So that does very much limit its reach for sure.
One
Um,
thing that does expand its reach, though, right, is the number of countries that PlayStation sold in. Obviously, the Steam Deck is very limited in the number of countries that they're selling in at the moment, and they are expanding. We've seen that in Asia, but but PlayStation sells in a ton more, and I feel like that's definitely going to be on their side in kind of fighting against the Steam Deck. But I don't know. I don't see this as making as big a splash as maybe people think. And I don't know the
Do people
PlayStation
think
thing
it's
is going
gonna
to
make a
make.
splash? I feel
I
like
don't know
people
the
think it's gonna.
PlayStation even think they do because, like,
Oh,
Jim Ryan announced it in, like, a 2-second segment with some headphones.
yeah. And that's kind of the thing that makes me think that they don't look at it like that, and that they
It
want it to
seems
be
like
a
a
niche thing.
hobby though to them. Like, it seems like a hobby project. Like, rather than we're seeing this as like PSVR 2 or we're seeing this as like something really big and like it could be something beneficial to our business, it seems like, oh, this was something that we knocked together and it seems like a decent idea. So why don't we just shove it out?
Yeah.
And we've got a load of components and shared components with the controllers, so we might as well. And we've got some screens left over from when Sony used to
Yeah.
make tablets,
I
so
don't
why
know,
not?
and that's the it's interesting because that's why I think there's so much question mark for me about what is the price point, because if it is this thing they were able to develop inexpensively and, want to put out at a cheap price point to try to see if it sticks, that could be
That
interesting.
that that's not their remit. Sony's remit is charge as much as they think they can charge, and they did that, right at the beginning of the generation with $70 games. And they did that with the price hike on the PS5 around the world. And I don't think that they're gonna undersell themselves on this because they wanna carve out a segment. They're gonna charge what they think they can charge for it while still making a decent
But that's
profit.
the question, is what do they think they can charge for it? Because it is supposed to be a niche device and it doesn't have this wide use
Yeah.
case. And that's the thing is, I'm not
I
saying
think
that they're
it's
gonna
249.
sell it at a loss, but it's like maybe you sell it, very slightly above cost, right? And like you make a modest profit on it, and that's
Maybe
good
because I
enough.
guess they're already a PlayStation customer, and they're already buying their games, and they're already in the ecosystem, and it's just an accessory to it. Maybe you're right.
And it's an
I
incentive
don't
to keep you in
necessarily.
the ecosystem rather than you going and considering maybe a handheld PC, buying a Nintendo Switch, getting using Game Pass via the cloud on your phone. This is a way for you to be like, well, when you're on the go, like PlayStation is still an option.
Well, but PlayStation's still an option anyway, right? Because we saw in their presentation yesterday as well, it felt like a ton of their games are coming to PC. Yeah, even the new
That's not
game
the
from
same thing
Bungie's
though.
coming to
That's not
PC, and we've
I
got the new game from Jade Raymond's coming to PC.
that's not the same thing though, because it's the exact same thing of like, if I buy this device, right? Like establish the price point. Say that this thing costs $200, right? Is there a good argument for me as, a Steam Deck user or whatever to buy it, right? As an alternative, or as a non-Steam Deck user, I mean to say. As an alternative, I don't think so. They're different products. However, if this experience on this device is seamless and it costs about $200, right? If I want to play PlayStation games on the go, it would be cheaper for me to invest in this thing than to rebuy all the software that I already own on PlayStation on Steam so that I can play it on my Steam Deck.
That's true. I mean, it depends if you're playing those games. Like, I do kind of feel like people either trade games in. I think a lot of people still do that, but I do
I
think
don't
that
I mean,
people just
you think
play a
so?
game and then
I
they
think that's
and they
a
don't return to it.
I
I
think
feel
that's a
like a lot of
dying art.
people feel like a lot of people just play a game and don't return to them.
Yeah,
I'm
but
kind of
again,
one of them.
but again, right? Like think of the games that you've bought, right? Like you bought and played Days Gone on your Steam Deck. I already
Mm.
own that on my PlayStation 4, right? Like I got it for free with PS Plus. I own a copy of it. If I wanted to play that game on my deck, like it would be a more inexpensive solution to take my PlayStation library with me to do that.
Or you install Chiaki, which can now be done
But again, right,
very
I own a Steam
easily.
Deck. So, like, for me, this product probably doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But again, if you're somebody where it's like, I don't play PC games, I don't own an Xbox, I don't have any games in my Steam library, I play all my games on PlayStation, and I play Sony first party, third party games that come to the platform, whatever, right? Like, I have a friend, right, for example, who his primary platform is PlayStation 5. He's playing Jedi Survivor right now, right? Him and his girlfriend are going on a trip. This could be a thing where he could throw it in his bag and at night, right? If he's still up late, because she usually goes to bed before him, He could jump in and keep playing the game that he's already playing. He's not going to buy a Steam Deck. He has a gaming PC at home. He doesn't see the need for a Steam Deck. He doesn't do a lot of portable gaming. The amount of time he needs to do gaming on the go is very limited. This makes more sense for somebody like that. Is that a significant segment of the I don't know. And I think that's why this thing has to be cheap. But
Mm.
the idea that
Yeah,
this
because like, you
speaks to
couldn't use
no
it while
one.
commuting, for example, like, I felt like that was a huge thing with the Vita in Japan. Everyone was using it commuting, playing their, like, visual
Yeah,
novels on the tube or whatever. That's not gonna work for
you
this,
couldn't do
You're
that with
not gonna have a
this.
stable connection to your PlayStation 5 at home. It's just not possible.
I
So it
guess
is
you could use like a
very limited.
hotspot on your phone, maybe, but I think that's
Yeah,
gonna
but,
be
like, if you go
shoddy,
through
right?
a tunnel or you're underground, it's like
Yeah,
you're done. So
right. So that's the thing, is like it I think even in the best case scenario for this device, based on what we know about it, its use case is limited for sure. Which to me is like, how do you come out and try to justify that that costs the same amount as a Nintendo Switch? And I don't know that they do.
I yeah. I think it's 250. I think split the difference. I think that's where they're going to target this at. I think they value it more than a DualSense Edge, and that's because it offers additional functionality than just a controller. But we're gonna have to wait and see. It's gonna be very interesting. It's nice to see more people getting into the handheld space again. Like
Yeah.
I really, really want Microsoft to get into it
It
and build like a portable Xbox that can play some games
Give
on the
me a Game
go
Pass dedicated
and like a
device.
Game Pass machine. Yeah, or bring Game Pass to Steam so we can kind of use it on whatever device we want.
Yeah, I think it's a bummer. I would have liked to see them be crazy enough to be like, "We're making another PlayStation port, PSP3, it's coming." But either way, I agree with you that it is exciting to see um these decision makers react to the renewed interest in handheld gaming. There was a point where it felt like everyone was like, handheld gaming's dead, it's in decline, nobody wants a dedicated device on the go anymore. I think it's very clear that that's not the case and that the Nintendo Switch was able to kind of prove that in a really mass
Yeah.
market way that is now expanding out and we're seeing
I think
more
what it
of
was
these
that
players.
people didn't want like a watered down experience on the go. We had those on our phones, and if we're going to play a watered down experience, why not do it on a dedicated device? But I am willing to play the full game that I can play at home on the go, and the Switch proved that. I think the handheld PCs pushed forward by the Steam Deck has like only gone on to kind of surpass people's expectations, and I think Sony's been looking over the other side of the fence and wants to see what's going on. I think this is more of a reactionary product, as I said on the Flip Screen Games podcast yesterday. I don't see that this was something that they had planned all along. That this was going to be a play, and we're going to bring back remote play, and this is going to be part of our like kind of playbook. I do think this was a reaction to what Microsoft was doing with the cloud streaming, with the G Cloud partnership, with all of that stuff. I'd think that Sony was like, oh, we need something. We need a way for people to play their games on the go. We don't have a cloud streaming solution at the moment that people can just stream on their phones or stream on a tablet or on one of these dedicated devices. And this was their solution. It's something they could put together pretty quickly, maybe pretty cheaply. We'll have to wait and see. But it allows people to play their games on the go, and that's what people have been asking for.
I'm very interested to see what this thing ends up being. you know, um, what the reaction is to it in the market. And then also, I think like what folks like you can do with it. And like when we bust it open and hack it, like does it have more functionality than
I think
maybe
people will eventually be able to kind of root the device and or jailbreak the device and get in there and be able to run some homebrew and some emulation and stuff. It depends what it's running, right? People were able to hack the PlayStation Classic within
that
days,
thing's
and
awesome as an
and like
emulator,
yeah,
right?
and shove
So
on some additional games. So it might be that something like that can happen here. People figure out how they can run additional software. If it's just running something like Android, you'll be able to like shove APKs on there. But I would imagine it's like a dedicated operating system that they've built. But
they
it's going
look,
to be very interesting. Very interesting.
yeah, we'll see what happens with it. And yeah, if you want to keep up with that story, Flip Screen Games podcast. That's our general grab bag show where we talk about PlayStation, Xbox, all that other good stuff. So go check that out. All right. So we've got some follow-ups from last week's show that I want to jump into. But before we do that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast, is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of May. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobi, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You all are the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to go and show your support just like they did, you want to write into the show just like everyone did for our question block, you want to keep the conversation going in between episodes, guess what? You can hit all of those goals just by heading over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to our Patreon, our Discord, our email address, however you want to get involved, join the community, or keep the conversation rolling, or show your support. Guess what? Flipscreen.games. You'll find a link right there. So let's get back to it. We got many people who wrote in following up on some of the stuff we talked about on last week's show. And I love the responses. Great conversation over in the Discord this week. And I wanted to pull some of them in because I thought there was some good conversation there. There were some good suggestions from folks in the community around some of the conversation we had around customization, right? We talked a little bit about the screen modding, right? Obviously, that capability that was coming to the Steam Deck. Then we also talked kind of more broadly about Steam Deck modding in general and like being able to customize the look and feel of your Steam Deck and all those sorts of things. And we got some really good some write-ins here that where people had some of their own suggestions or things that they've done. And I thought there was some good stuff for you in the community to check out for yourself if you're so inclined. So Pacamera wrote in with a great response that is gonna how I've done this, right? I broke Pacamera's comments up and I've threaded the rest of yours through there. So Pac, you're gonna be our kind of the broad outline of this week's question block. All right. We're gonna be weaving in and out of your comments here. So thank you for writing in. Pacamera wrote in over on Discord, just like you can, and said, my thoughts on some of the things you mentioned this week regarding the skins. I was really tempted to get the yellow D brand skin. Love that kind of cyberpunk purple and yellow colors in general, but I am exactly like yourself, Pete. I'd be worried about putting it on wrong, then anxiously picking at it, and it'd end up driving me mad. I guarantee I would do that to myself, right? I'd nick it and then just peel the whole damn thing off. Look at the back of my
Where you get like a
phone.
slight bubble and then it would be there, or like the edge would start peeling, and I know you would continuously like
Uh-huh.
pull at it when you're playing and just like fidget it and
And
then
just
pull
have
it
a
off.
nice thick film of residue all over my Steam Deck when I pull it off.
Yeah, would not be good.
But I did like
But
this
I
suggestion. Pacamera said, I just like some stickers I had lying around on the back of my deck. Could work for yourself to differentiate your two decks. I commented last week on the show, if you missed it, that my wife and I both have Steam Decks, and like it's impossible to tell which one is which until you turn it on. So I thought that
mm.
was a good suggestion, Pacamera. I appreciate that.
You know what, Pacamara, would you buy or would you enjoy a flip screen sticker or a Steam Deck podcast sticker? I'm curious. I want to gauge interest because I've been wanting to make stickers for a very, very long time.
Yeah, we got
And
to do that.
I think a flip screen sticker on the back of a Steam Deck covering up that Valve icon would be wonderful.
Might be time. It might be time.
Yeah.
So then Team Linux 01 wrote in and added to this part of the conversation and said, when I pre-ordered the D brand kill switch, I bought some black stick grips with it. And it also came with the portal colored stick grips for free. To tell my wife's and my Steam Decks apart, I find that it's helpful that she has the portal grips and I have the black grips. Plus, the grips feel great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the grips are seemingly out of stock at the moment, or unless you buy the Project Kill switch. But yeah, they look really good. I'm curious.
They're out
Do
of stock
they?
for you? It looks like I can get them.
Maybe it's a UK thing. Yeah, they're out of stock when I click on the link you've got in the doc.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. Does it stop the capacitive stuff working?
Doesn't. It says touch compatibility. Yes, it still works. If you're one of the 6
Oh,
people who actually use gyroscopic controls on their Steam Deck, rest assured, stick grips will
get
not
out of here,
interfere.
six
If you're
people.
furiously typing an email defending gyro controls, stop. We don't care.
Look, we even converted Pete. Gyro people, we converted Pete. If you're not been listening to Nintendo Noise and the Tears of the Kingdom talk, Pete's on
It's
board now, so
happening.
we've got another one.
I'm becoming a gyro aimer. I think I'm gonna try it on the Steam Deck now because I've gotten so into it on Tears of the Kingdom. So
When you play Hitman on your Steam Deck, which is inevitable,
yeah, of course.
configure it. I'm telling you, the best configuration is sod those capacitive sticks because it is really annoying that it just is always on. I do it in the same way that Tears of the Kingdom does it, where when I pull down the left trigger and I'm in aiming mode,
That's how you do it.
then I can do the gyro in the same way that in Tears of the Kingdom when you're aiming the bow or when you're aiming the kind of camera, it allows you to use gyro.
Yeah, I'm interested in trying to adapt it more into my gameplay moving forward. But I definitely appreciate the suggestion here, Team Linux. I think this is a novel solution. I could see this being an easy solution to my problem, right? Just throw an alternative grip on one of them and that'll be that. I gotta be honest, I don't love that the portal ones, like they're two different colors. Like the whole
You hated that with the
I
Switch as
still
well,
do.
so
I feel like I'd have to buy two of these just so I could have two blue. I could put two blue and two red
there's
on.
gotta be, like, cheap ones of these on, like, AliExpress at this point. There's
Yeah, but
just
then they
gotta
won't
be.
have the touch functionality, Steve. I can't use the gyro.
I bet they will, I
You
bet they
just
will,
sold
but
me
s
on it. But yeah, thanks for the suggestion, Team Linux. I'm gonna throw the link to D Brand's grips down in the description down below, so y'all can check it out for yourself if you'd like to. So jumping back to Pacamara's comment regarding the screen slash upgrade slash battery life. I would not want a better screen, CPU, GPU, etc. if it negatively affects the battery life. Most trips I do around Ireland on the bus slash train are like 2 to 3 hours, and I play for around 1 or 2 hours maybe. I always have my battery pack, but I never have to use it. Even flying to some cities in Europe, the flights are always around 2 hours. So right now, it's perfect. I've never had it die on me. Granted, I play a lot of indies, which may not be heavy on the battery, but I also don't play with the performance tab that much, which I could do to save some battery. If they could add in better specs slash screens and keep the battery the same, I'd be happy. So, and I
Mhm.
think to clarify that last sentence, right? You mean if you could increase those things and keep the same percentage, the same rate of battery experience, that would be a good trade off for you. And that makes sense, right? Like, I hear that. I think, particularly if you're somebody who isn't trying to play the big AAA games on your Steam Deck, I think the battery life is better than it gets credit for. It's when you
Oh,
do
yeah, I
try to
got, like,
hit
s I
those.
got, like, 6 hours out of Vampire Survivors.
Yeah. Or like when I'm playing like Pokemon Blue Kaizo on my Game Boy emulator. It's lasting a long time. It's lasting
Or whe
days, you know?
or when I was using, like, Chiaki or Greenlight to remote play my Xbox or my PS5, like, it's not using anything. I put the TDP down to nothing, it's silent, it's just literally streaming a video stream.
Yeah, but
It's using hardly any battery.
when I was running Persona 5 Royal on those high settings and I forgot to change
Yeah.
them, that drained in like an hour.
That's why I think we need those presets to be like, save settings, and I want, like, a battery saver preset. I think games should have that, like, it should be in the performance tabs, like,
Agreed.
have presets.
And it would be really nice if there was an option like when it warned you that your battery was getting low that you could just press the Steam button and be like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like, when your
kick me in a
phone
low
does it,
battery
it
mode.
puts in, like, low battery mode on your phone. Just a
Yeah,
little yellow
right? And it's like,
battery.
yeah, just like, squash the performance a little bit so that it lasts a little longer,
Yeah.
you know?
No, that would be nice. I think one thing that stood out in Pacamara's, response here was flying to cities in Europe, yes, the flights are 2 hours, but you have to get to the airport, like, 2 hours before to get through security and then sit around bored
You can charge in the airport
while you're in
though.
a glorified shopping mall, surrounded by stuff you don't need to buy.
Yeah, but if you're at the airport, you're guaranteed to have a charger
Yeah,
if you look around
that's
a little
true.
bit, right? And granted, I feel like more often than not, most airlines you're getting a charger in your seat. But my
I
last
don't
trip,
know.
I flew Spirit, which is like the budget US airline. So we had no electricity on that one. They're like, you got what you got, man.
Oh, yeah, if Pacamara's flying out of Ireland with Ryanair, no, you get,
Two
like, paying
hours
for
though, you'll be
everything
all
on that.
right, right? 2 hours not too bad. Mine
Yeah,
was
for the
mine was a
most part.
6 hour flight, and that thing died less than 2 hours in, and I was like, uh oh.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really appreciate now that you can use electronic devices at takeoff and landing. I remember the time when you had to like scurry them away. Now I'm just like, noise canceling headphones on, and let's just play a
Yeah,
game,
now
and I
instead
can
I'm
just forget
reading
everything.
dialogue in Persona just
And it's
violently
like
shaking.
shaking,
Like
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, whatever, cool.
You're like, I'm really glad there's a log because I missed all of that. Well, it was rapidly shaking in front of me.
And I did want to issue a slight correction from last week as well. While we're on the note of the battery stuff, I think I mentioned that Stevie Yaki, one of our Discord members, had a battery strapped to the back of their deck, and actually they wrote in to correct me, and Steve said I have an SSD on the back of my deck, not a battery. I even
Ah.
emailed JSOC saying they should make a protective shell with a M.2 slot built in. So fingers crossed. So Steve doesn't have one, but Steve's on the same wavelength as us, where it's like, let's get a thing where I can slot one of these bad boys in there, you know?
Yeah, they do a dock with one, and then, Valve, like, changed the system so it would, like, auto mount SSDs when you were in gaming mode as well to kind of cater for those things, so I thought that was really cool.
That is cool.
I yeah, I remembered when I saw this comment that, yeah, Stevie does have that with because it was for the Windows setup. I
Right.
think
Yes.
they're running the Windows setup off of the external drive.
I did find a cool thing on Reddit that I wanted to pull up though, as well, like while we were on the subject of like interesting accessories. I remember you talked last week about using the strap on the back of your Steam Deck as like a storage solution. And I found this thing on the subreddit today while I was putting the notes together where this person made a custom clip that slides onto it's like if you're not on YouTube, I'll describe it, right? It's a 3D printed clip and it is like a money clip basically, and you stick both of it ends of it around your your that strap on your the back of your Steam Deck that has the elastic. And then on the other side of it, it has a bunch of little slots where you can stick in SD cards. So that you can have, you know, like if you've got multiple libraries or whatever set up or something like that. And I thought that was a pretty novel solution, you know?
Yeah, it's really neat, and I've seen these on, like, on some of the cases from JSOX and Dbrand as well. They have, like, these storage sections for SD cards built in. I don't know about you, though, that I've not once hot swapped a micro SD card
No, I don't do
on
that.
my
I think
Steam
I
Deck.
think that seems kind of crazy to be like, I'm gonna just carry and like no offense, if anybody does that, that's fine. But the idea of like, oh, this one has my emulators on it, this one has this on it, this one has that. I am like, I'm the person who's like, give me the biggest hard drive so I can just shove it all on one thing and and not worry about it.
Yeah, I'm the same, like, I really wanna replace the drive in my deck so I can just not worry about it. I have a terrible habit of, like, hoarding things, though, because my internet's so bad, as we've established over the course of
Yeah,
this
it's like, "Ah, I
episode.
don't what if I decide I want to play this again?
Yeah, like, I've realized I've gotta download Diablo again because the beta version's different to the production version, so I have to
Ooh,
download it again, which
no.
is another 80 gig download. So I've gotta look forward to that
Better
next
start
week.
that now.
Yeah, but in order to do that, I've gotta pre-order it, and I'm just like, "Do I wanna pre-order it? Am I gonna play it a little bit later? Because like, Tears of the Kingdom's here, and I'm still in the middle of it, so I'm just, like, figuring out if I wanna play it at launch or not."
Hmm. It's a tough one. Tough equation, bud. So these next two came over from the YouTube channel. Lee Harris 5135 over on YouTube wrote in and said, regarding battery packs, I find that just placing it on the sofa next to me is fine. No extra weight. For me, even putting the battery pack in my pocket would be preferable over strapping it to the deck. Read the transparent, and then they also added, read the transparent back. I have one. It looks very cool, but the incredibly hot to touch metal plate isn't ideal. I didn't realize they
Oof.
had a metal plate inside them.
Yeah, that does not sound great at all. I did forward you, an email of someone that had, the transparent, purple metal back and, with a really cool sticker of a mushroom from Mario in there as well,
What?
which
No,
looked
I
really
didn't see
cool.
that. They
Um
wrote in just to show it to us, or you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saw
so
it?
they wrote in, it's from Sean Davey, and they said, "Just listening to the recent Steam Deck cast, you asked for shots of custom decks, and I completely agree, an Anker or JSORX battery pack with that synergy would be lush. I followed you guys from day one and completed every software mod and the backplate, which is both awesome at looking and hot, like heat hot, but screens and Hall effects sticks. I'm not brave enough yet. Keep up the good work, guys. Love and good vibes, Sean.
Hey, Sean, thank you so much for writing in, man. I really appreciate that, and thank you for listening to the show for so long and sticking around with us. Glad
Yeah,
you've been enjoying it. That's a bummer to hear both of you say that it's hot in the back.
I
That
know. When I didn't realize multiple people have said that like black plate on the back is gets boiling
yeah,
hot
that kind of makes me not want to do it.
because it's right next to your fingers as well.
Yeah, that's a bad spot to be heated up. Also, I like in
Yeah.
this other picture that they sent, they've got one of these custom like the
Oh
Game
yeah, the
Boy
transparent.
handhelds.
Well, and the transparent purple on the Pro controller has been modded to
Oh,
match
I didn't even
the
realize that was
yeah
purple. That's really
to
cool.
match
All
the
right.
Steam Deck.
Very nice. I like that a lot. Here,
Yeah.
I'm pulling up the back panel with the mushroom on it for the folks here. There we go. Look at that.
Those Ambernic devices are really nice. I think that's a 351V, if I'm not mistaken. Looks really cool. I really
Very
want to get one.
very good work here, Sean. Stuff's looking good, man. So let me ask this to both you, Sean, and Lee. When you're saying it's hot, is it just on that black spot? Is that the heat sink? Because that, like you said, that's like right where your hand is. I don't know about all that. Let me ask you this to the two of you. You both did it. It looks cool. Was the trade-off worth it? Does it look cool enough for how hot it gets, or should I just stick with what I got? Because I'm not trying to like burn my hands for the fashion, you know. So you guys let me know.
Fashion is painful though, right? That's what they
That's what they
say. You
say.
gotta
Yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong. You know, every once in a while, I'm down to go fashion over function. But
yeah,
when you're
you get your stilettos out.
yeah, or you know, your Jordans, your your Doc Martens, right? Lots of the coolest shoes in the world. They just pinch your feet.
I can. I genuinely can. I mean, the closest I get is Converse, and they're not an everyday shoe, as I figured out when I was walking around London. They are not an all day shoe at all. I love the look of them. Walk around on London's cobbled streets in Converse and
You
do
got to
that
buy
for
one of them
7
Dr.
hours.
Scholl's inserts, man.
Yeah, and you will never ever do it again. Yeah, I know, it was horrendous. I did that and then went to see Panic at the Disco, and I was stood up for like
Oh, that's too
8 hours
no, that's too
straight.
many. That's too much standing for a day.
Yeah, it was awful.
You set yourself up for failure on that one. So then we got another comment here. This one came from SchlittyTube over on YouTube, who said underrated aspect for the Deck HD screen would be if it has a better touchscreen. I know a lot of people don't use it on the Deck, but the Deck's touchscreen is not great. I, for one, would love one that works with a stylus too. It's a good shout.
Oh, it's not yeah, unfortunately, the issue is not the hardware, it's the software. If you install Windows 11 on your Steam Deck, the touchscreen is phenomenal. Really, really
Really?
responsive, wonderful, the keyboard's lovely, everything about it is great. But if you use it in SteamOS, it sucks big time. The
So
keyboard is
what's
awful.
going on there? Is that an intentional limiting of the sensitivity for SteamOS, or is it just that SteamOS doesn't
I
interact with
just think
touchscreens
it's
well?
yeah. So I think the way it works, the Steam UI, the Steam client is built with Chromium embedded framework. It's just a web browser essentially, and all of that is just web. And I think the keyboard is even just a web view. I think it's literally just a web page that gets pulled up and it's just like buttons on a screen.
So can you not
And
use it offline?
you can use it offline. It's like an embedded web page in the device,
Got you.
but
Okay,
I
I'm with you.
think it's not as responsive as, say, like a native control in Windows at like the operating system level. At least I think that's how the keyboard works. But yeah, it's not great over on the SteamOS side. I don't use I never ever use the touchscreen for the keyboard on SteamOS. I use the dual
Yeah,
trackpads.
same.
I'm always using those. But on Windows, it was lovely, just typing away, no problem whatsoever.
A stylus would be really nice for doing like some of the more, you know,
Oh,
finicky stuff
bit of
in
Picross, some of those classic Picross games with the stylus.
I wasn't even thinking for games. I was more thinking like when I'm in desktop mode and I'm like trying to load ROMs into folders and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It would just be nice to be able to have a finer point, you know, because like I don't know, like I don't have
You can get
you
a
always joke that
capacitive
you have tiny
touchscreen
hands. Mine are
stylus.
kind of big. So I'm like,
I've got tiny hands. Can you imagine King Charles using this thing with his, like, big sausage fingers? He would
doof,
able to
doof,
touch
doof,
nothing. He'd be
doof.
touching four keys on the keyboard at once.
Like dent in the screen. So jumping back into Pacamara's comments, then talking about the shared profiles for configurations was one of the other things that we talked about. And Pacamara said, "I wish that there was a way to enable." Or I'm sorry, we didn't talk about this last time. We've talked about it previously. I wish there was a way to enable community performance setting configurations like we can with controller layouts. Right now, Steam Deck HQ is what I use to figure out the best settings, but it's a very manual process. Although that also goes a step further and gets you to update the actual in game settings, which probably wouldn't be possible to automate, right? That would be a game changer if possible. Is that possible, Steve?
I think so. Um, uh, it would need to be done, I think, so I was actually looking at doing this as a plugin at some point. You need a database of where those games store those configuration files. So every game just stores them essentially in a text file with the settings in. If you can build up that database of where those files are, and I was planning on like building something to do this, and I'm sure someone else will be able to. Steam Deck HQ will probably do something like this at some point because they've got a Decky plugin. Um, you could just download those config files and replace the config file that already exists. So it's theoretically possible. I wish Valve would do something built in at some point because they could just say to the because when you upload a game to Steam, you have to tell them where the save files are stored, and that's how the cloud save stuff is done. And you also tell them where the config files are stored because that's how it saves the config files to the cloud. So they already know where the config files are. They could theoretically have like you're sharing config files and you upload them, and this is like the Steam Deck configuration, or they could have their own. So like when they mark it as Steam Deck verified, they could have like, oh, we download this config file and we put that in there, and that's our recommended settings. Or the developers could do their recommended settings. Like I know some games are getting Steam Deck profiles at this point, but older games obviously will never get that. It's definitely possible, but I don't know if it's on their radar or coming anytime soon.
It's a shame. I think that would really be nice. It's definitely something we've talked about quite a bit, and I think obviously the controller configuration sharing is like a huge advantage on the Steam Deck, especially in the early days, right? Where it was an even more niche product and like no developers were coming out with Steam Deck modes. And it was very much you'd go and you'd find, okay, this is the one that has the most hours and the most upvotes, and we'll see how it goes. And I mean, what 9.9 times out of 10 it's a better experience than the base one, right? So like having the ability, cuz you do that all the time, Steve, right? Like you talk all the time about how much you love playing games at 40 FPS on Steam Deck, and that you found these good configurations that really make the games feel like they're not as compromised, right? And they're taking advantage of the hardware to an appropriate degree without, draining the battery life. And it would be amazing if folks who just do not have either the knowledge or are just lazy and don't want to do it could go and look and be like, oh yeah, here, Steve on Steam DB, right? Or, on the Steam drop down menu over here, right? He's got this configuration. He played the game for 100 hours. It's got 1,000 upvotes. All right. Like this probably works, and that would be great. And it would be nice to be able to have that functionality built in, like we said, right? With a more like native type experience where you didn't have to have that manual adjustment, and that you could kind of, even if it was like a short list, if you could favorite a couple presets of like, this is my preset for docked. This is my preset for handheld at max settings. This is my preset for handheld when I'm trying to conserve battery life, right? That would be incredible. That would
Even
be
then, I wish that you could, because you can do that on a per controller basis. I actually think you could do it, and I'd love to be able to assign it to a controller, right? Like when I'm on handheld mode, I don't have a controller attached, but when
Oh,
I've
that
when
would
I've
be
docked it
amazing.
and I've connected a Nintendo Switch controller, then I know that I kind of want it in Switch mode. I want to swap the A and B configuration
That would be
round
really nice.
and do all of that stuff. But then also if I assign it to like an Xbox controller, then I want this performance profile to come on board, and it knows then that I'm kind of going into docked mode.
That would be cool. That would be really cool. So while we're, we just were seconds ago, right, commenting on Steam OS and the interactions with the touchscreen and everything. We had another comment here on the Discord from John Yu who wrote in and said, Valve really need to expedite the desktop slash general release of Steam OS now. While handhelds like the Ally are the new hotness, having Steam OS become a viable or even preferred option would be hugely beneficial for them. I'm not sure if this was John Yu's intention, but I kind of thought that this was maybe in response to the conversation we had about Valve's competition on hardware, right? And that it is more on the software side of things where it feels like they have that room to grow and that room to dominate. And yeah, I'm with you there, John. I'm excited about a future where SteamOS is a viable alternative on any device for PC gaming, and hopefully not just gaming, right? Like we've talked a lot about that, with with the I'm sorry, refresh me on the name of the technology that creates the compatibility layer. What is that again?
Proton.
Proton. Thank you. Um, I, I think the other really interesting thing is going to be, can we have similar levels of compatibility for things like the Adobe Suite, right? Or these other programs or like OBS, right? Things that people are really used to using on Windows, that then they could pull over and use on SteamOS and have a more seamless option for running Linux and not having Linux be as much of an enthusiast thing, right? Which is, historically how it's been, right? Is like, not that you can't do those things on Linux, but like it takes know-how, right? It takes some tinkering, it takes some experimentation, it takes some research. Whereas if Valve can really emerge as a legitimate alternative, at least for folks who are primarily using their PC as a gaming device, that could really be huge for them. Just on a, you say it could be hugely beneficial for them. Yeah, I mean, it could really make them a de facto choice for folks in that use case, and or they're already the preferred marketplace for software, right? So imagine the synergy you can have, stem to stern, if you have a device that is built and running an operating system primarily to interact with the Steam ecosystem and the marketplace, right? Like that could be very interesting.
Oh, 100%, and it removes the reliance on Windows, which we know they've been wanting to do for years. At this point, like, it's kind of getting ridiculous. We're up to point 5 and we've not had a SteamOS 3 release. Like the we need the installer. I want the installer so I can dual boot Windows. I do think SteamOS 3.5 is the release they're looking to kind of push out to general. Comes with huge improvements and it's seemingly stepping up to be the biggest ever release we've had of SteamOS since the Steam Deck's been around. And you can watch an episode on that from a few weeks ago that Peter Max did, just outlining some of the stuff that's coming. Things like HDR support, the kind of color profiles. We've got the SMT stuff in there. We've got the improved drivers for AMD, which will enable the kind of slimming down of the shader compilations and all of that stuff. So, like, if you've got a 64 gig Steam Deck, then it will reduce the kind of footprint that you need for a lot of the games. So, I think it's kind of time to push that out for general release. But really, like the seemingly the gaming flavor that everyone uses Manjaro Linux, and they'll use Lutris or they'll use Steam on it. I think to have like a generalized, this is a focus on gaming, and this is kind of the flavor that you use, but with Arch Linux as the underpinning, so you can use it as like a general operating system as well. It'll be really, really beneficial for them. And they've done a lot of work. They did a lot of work and teaming up with KDE and getting a lot of the stuff done, enable the switching over between environments from gaming mode to desktop mode. There's a lot of stuff that they've done and put into it, and I think it would be great to be able to utilize that on other devices other than the Steam Deck.
And we talked a while ago about, oh, I can't remember the brand that made that little like set top PC. You
Oh
told me
yeah,
about it.
yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah.
Uh, I'm sure as soon as we're done we'll remember, but I can't think of what it was right off the top of my head. But we talked about the idea of kind of taking that and being able to make a dedicated Steam machine type device, right? That lives in your living room and you treat more like a traditional console, and having that, kind of be a way for you to take the Steam Deck experience that you have, right, on the go and in handheld and add another SKU to it if you are somebody who, um, like us, right? Like you and I both work in tech, right? We sit at desks all day. We don't necessarily want to, after sitting at our work desk for 8 hours, hang out for another 4 or 5 and play games on it, right? So the idea of like bringing that PC gaming experience to your living room and then having your Steam Deck and have that seamless with the cloud saves and, the shared library and the ability to just have it, quote unquote, just work, right? Even with MU Deck now, right? Having cloud save support and everything, like even the third party stuff you're using on it, you can
Well,
create
and
that.
Dolphin is coming to Steam with built-in like Steam
Isn't that
Cloud Save
wild?
support. Yeah,
It's
it's crazy. It's awesome.
so I think that is going to be such an interesting time when that finally drops and kind of trying to understand the real limits of that and what you can use and how you can create this, um this like living hybrid system based on whether you're trying to play on the desktop, whether you're trying to have a big picture mode in your living room, whether or not you're taking advantage of the Steam Deck. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be, I think, really interesting. And I'd love to get to a point where I'm excited to do that and set up a Linux based, set top machine in my room, in my living room.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd love that, like a Steam box again, Steam and the Steam
Yeah,
machine in your living room, what it was meant to be years ago, but now it's kind of finally come to fruition.
it's come
I'd
full
love
circle.
Valve to make one at some point as well.
Sure. Yeah, that would be cool, particularly if there was, special interactions between the devices and them kind of being able to have them communicate in different ways. Like I could see that being really cool for like things like multiplayer, right? Where it's like, oh, I have this and I have some controllers linked up to it and I have a Steam Deck. And when I turn the Steam Deck on, the Steam box recognizes that it's there and we can use it as a second display or we can use it as a controller or, have that kind of that, again, that more seamless interaction that we always talk about wanting to see them experiment with more,
Yeah, I'd love to see I'd love to see what they can do outside of, like, the handheld segment.
for sure. So, new question that came in. I do want to just quickly address. This one came from Jingernut over on the Discord who said, "Does anyone know when they might have decks back in stock? Been none for ages. Typically when I decide I want to get one. Seen a lot for sale on eBay and groups, one near me so I can go and pick it up. But I wonder what the warranty slash repairs are like for a secondhand one." So, few things. I wanted to start by asking Jingernut, what is your region? Because in the states, I went and checked the site. They're currently available, and they seem to have a 1 to 2 week window as per usual. But when Steve went and checked it out, it was only the most expensive version that was available, and that even had a delayed window. Right? That was what you found, Steve.
Yeah, so the 64 and the 256 are out of stock. The 512 is in stock, but it's a 1 to 2 week wait on it.
That's what all of
Um,
them say on the American website. For what it's worth, I'm wondering if that's
okay, so
just
maybe
standard
that's just how
shipping.
long it is. Yeah, it could just be
Yeah.
the distribution center takes 1 to 2 weeks then. But yeah, the two I presume most popular models are out of stock,
Yeah.
which is weird. And it's been a while then.
Yeah, so I'm wondering. That's why I wanted to ask what your region was there, Jingernut. Because if you're also in the UK, then maybe we've solved our mystery here, and there's a shortage in the UK. But I'm wondering is that are you maybe in Europe? Are you maybe in yet another region, right, where the Steam Deck's been rolled out? Because we know that they have been obviously rolling it out in new regions. There's been a ton of them going to different markets in Asia. So I'm wondering if they're having trouble keeping up with the demand right now, and that's leading to certain markets being slightly underserved. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of answering the rest of your question, what the warranty slash repairs are like for the secondhand one, I'm not sure how you would be able to take advantage of the warranty situation if you aren't the original owner of the device, because I know you can just connect it to your account. So if that person is already signed in and registered and kind of done that whole thing already, I'm not sure what the how that would work, if you can just transfer it over and then Valve will honor that, or maybe you can ask the seller if they have it and they haven't turned it on. Because if they haven't used it and they're just trying to get rid of it because they don't want it, then you should be fine, right? You should just be able to inherit it as if it were yours when you got it brand new. Because I got mine through Mango, right? One of the moderators of our community. So it was originally his sale, but it was connected to my account the first time it was turned on, and I never experienced any issue with that.
I don't think it matters. I think warranty is transferable, but there is only a 1 year warranty, so it's quite possible at this point
It
because
might
the
be
Steam Deck's been out for
expired
over a
anyway.
year. It could be expired, so you do need to make sure that when it was purchased to see if it has a warranty. In terms of repairs, Valve does have repair centers now, so you can send it in for repair, and well, obviously at your expense if it's out of warranty. But Stevie Yaki over on the Discord said that they're one of the easiest handhelds to fix, and all the parts are on iFixit. If you have no warranty, but if you do have issues, it's easily fixed and upgraded. But you can also just send it in for repair now. They have repair centers. Mine went in for an RMA. They were originally just replacing any device that went in for an RMA, but once they got the repair center set up, I ended up with the same Steam Deck back, and it even still had my screen protector on, which I was very happy about.
Very nice. So I would just like to extend this to anybody in the community. If you whatever region you're in, if you're not in the UK or the States, take a look and see what the availability is like and write into us because I would love to nail down what's going on. Because I tried to Google it and look around and it didn't seem like there was chatter about there being shortages. So I would love to get to the bottom
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's related to the kind of thermal revision that we saw a couple of weeks ago and spoke about,
Potentially,
and maybe they're just like pushing out new models, or maybe they've just reached capacity while they're expanding into Asia. Maybe they're just like we've not got enough to satisfy all the regions, and they're
yeah, and
targeting the
then
ones that they can.
Yeah, and then maybe it is like a thing of like, well, we're ramping up in this region, and like maybe Europe is the market that has the least demand right now, so we'll reduce the numbers there, and people are still ordering them in the States. That's why you can still get one. It could be something like that where they're just kind of trying to, keep up
It's
with
weird.
demand as
It's
much as they
weird that
can.
you can't reserve them though. Like I can't back order if I wanted to, and like you could right at the beginning.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's interesting. This feels a little tinfoil hatty, but you talked about the revision and everything, and it makes you wonder maybe is there a change coming to the model, right? Or the package? Maybe they'll offer different things with it. You've
Yeah,
talked a lot about them phasing
I
out the
don't think
cheapest
so.
model.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that if they replace the 64 with a 128 for the same price, or move the 256 down and pop a 1 terabyte one at the top. Like I do feel like 64 is just on the cusp of being a little bit too small,
It's not
especially
enough.
when shaders are taking up a lot of space. It's fine when you've got a micro SD card in there, but the shaders always stay on the internal SSD, which can be a problem. But maybe CMOS 3.5 fixes that. Could be
Supposed
that.
to, right?
That's
There's
no
supposed
issue.
to be that thing where you can, you were just talking about that where it'll reduce the impact of the size of those things and everything. But
Yeah.
even so, I mean, if you play a lot of games, you're gonna fill it up eventually.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, granted, it's one of the easiest things to swap out if you want to. You
Sure.
can just take the back plate off and swap out the SSD. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if we do get a revision at some point. We'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. So
It
before
might be
we
a silent revision, though. We've had
very
silent
true.
revisions already with the fan change, with the button change, all of those things. They might not tell us.
You make a good point. So just before we bounce for the day, I do want to lead off with a question here from Squid, spelled SQYD 0080 over on YouTube. He said, "Can you do an accessories episode? Would be cool for some recommendations of yours or other listeners." Yeah, we can definitely do that. I believe the last time we significantly spoke about accessories would have been on our. I think we did a holiday episode, right, where we talked about like accessories you could buy for Steam Deck users and things like that. So
Yeah, I
there's
think you're
some
probably right.
conversation available about it, but I also think at this point there's been a lot of new devices and new developments and things that we've been looking at and considering, and Steve's bought new stuff already. So yeah, we're probably due
Yeah,
for an update.
I'm pretty boring and vanilla when it comes to accessories, so I don't really have a lot, but I've got some that I can talk about,
I want
some
to hear from the
cool, like,
community because
dongles and stuff, but yeah, so I definitely wanna hear from other people from the community like they did this week with the customization talk.
yeah.
Send in photos, send in your favorite accessories, send in what you use and why, or stuff to avoid, like what's bad and we should stay clear of.
And we'll show off Stevie Yaki's hybrid backpack.
Frankendeck.
Yeah, the Franken deck. I like that. So yeah, if you've got your own setup like that, I'd love to hear what you guys are doing in the same way that like Sean wrote in with the and sent us pictures. Let us see it. Let me see the insane things you're doing. I
Yeah.
saw somebody earlier on the Steam Deck subreddit who was going on a road trip and had their deck hooked into an external monitor that they had strapped to the back of the passenger seat in the front row, and they had a lap set up with a keyboard and mouse, and they're like, "Let's see if I can speed run Fallout New Vegas." So I want to see wacky stuff like that. What wacky stuff are y'all getting up to out there?
Speaking of Fallout New Vegas, don't forget, go download that on the Epic Games Store at the moment. It's
It and
free.
all the DLC is
Yeah,
free.
go get it.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Then you have to go on the Epic Game Store. So,
Which is not bad because you can do it all through Heroic or Lutris or whatever you want to use, and it's fine. It's easy, easy, easy.
all right. Well, you know what? You heard it here first, everybody. Steve supports Epic. So, thank you guys for joining us on another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Remember, if you want to write in and be a part of the show, just like everybody did this week, thank you all so much for writing in. It was a great episode. We love hearing from you guys and hearing, your thoughts and how you guys are taking advantage of the deck and all that good stuff. So make sure that you all write in. There's a bunch of ways you can do that. Questions at flipscreen.games. We've got the Discord where the conversation keeps rolling between episodes. You can head over and find links to those and a lot more over on flipscreen.games. That's our website. Where you can go become a Patreon supporter. You can find some of our sister shows. However you choose to get involved, show your support, or tune in. We thank you for being a member of the community and for joining us here on another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. I did it right today, Steve. I did it right. Look at it. I did the point. It's nailing it. All right. We'll see you next week, babies.